Hello! In this chapter we will learn how we can create and manipulate dates and times in Java, using the new modern API that Java provides for that. In this first video we'll make a quick introduction and overview before we can go into specific details and implementations. Java 8 introduced new APIs for date and time, replacing the older Java util date and Java util calendar. The new package is Java time, and some of its classes are local date, local time, local date time, period, duration, and many more. Don't get me wrong, you can still use the old APIs, but all the relatively new projects will use the new one. I won't get into the old way because of that. It would be time consuming and you will benefit very little of learning about some old Java stuff that's hardly ever used. In the following videos we will learn how to create, manipulate and format dates and times. But let's answer the most logical question first. Why would we need a new API? First, because of the API design. The old date and calendar classes are poorly designed and with inadequate methods to manipulate dates and time. The new datetime API is ISO-centric and follows consistent domain models for date, time, duration and periods. The new API also supports a lot of different intuitive methods. Second, zoned date and time. Using the old API, developers had to write additional logic to handle time zone logic. With the new API, handling them can be done easily with local and zoned date time. And finally, not safety and hard to maintain. That is the old API. It is not thread safe, leaving developers to deal with a lot of problems while debugging concurrency issues and having to write additional code to handle thread safety. The new classes are immutable and thread safe, thus no more error and way more secure. This was placed in the last position because you don't know what is thread safe for now. We will discuss that in the multithreading chapter. I know, a lot of things already mentioned concerned multithreading, but this is because Java was famous about being multithreaded, thus fast but secure. One more thing. Immutable class means a class that objects from it, when are created, can't not be changed, or any of its contents. In Java, all the wrapper classes like integer, boolean, byte, short, they're immutable. String is also immutable. We can create our own immutable classes as well. Now let's try and make a quick review of the most important classes we will study. Don't hurry to celebrate. These are just the most important ones. There will be some more that we'll mention in relation to those. First, we have local date, which is a class that represents a date without a time zone. It's often viewed as year, month, day. Other fields such as day of year, day of week, and week of year can also be accessed. A good example of local date is your birthday this year. It is your birthday for a full day, regardless of what time it is. Then we have local time, which is a class representing a time without a time zone. It's often viewed as hour, minute, second. Time is represented to nanoseconds precision. A good example of local time is midnight. It is midnight at the same time every day. On the other hand, local date time represents date time object without a time zone. It's often viewed as year, month, day, hour, minute, second. Other fields, such as day of year, day of week, week of year, can also be accessed. A good example of local datetime is the stroke of midnight on New Year's Eve. Midnight on January 2nd isn't nearly as special, making the date relatively unimportant, and clearly an hour after midnight isn't as special either. We have also zoned datetime, which is a class that represents a datetime object with a time zone. This class stores all date and time fields to a precision of nanoseconds, and also a time zone, with a zone offset used to handle ambiguous local date times. A good example of zoned datetime is a conference call at 9 AM UTC. If you live in London, that's fine, but if you are in the US, depending on where exactly in the US you are, this will be after midnight. A period is a class that represents a date-based amount of time. This class models a quantity or amount of time in terms of years, months, and days. A good example of period is, for example, 1 year, or 3 months, or 5 days, or 1 year, 3 months, and 5 days. Finally, we have duration, which is a class that represents time-based amount of time. This class models quantity or amount of time in terms of seconds and nanoseconds. It can be accessed using other duration-based units, such as minutes and hours. Duration can be 6 hours or 70 minutes or 23 seconds or a combination. We will study a lot of different things related to formatting and parsing strings as dates or time objects, because sometimes you would have to convert from strings to datetime or vice versa using a special format which is required for some special cases. Working with dates and times is important, so I hope I got your attention here.
For more details, check the link in the description. Learn with Whizlabs. Success certified.